Hello everybody and welcome back at Adobe Live. We are here with a brand new episode of How To. I'm so excited to see so many people in the chat. Where are you guys watching from? I'm your host Kladi and I'm going to be here from today every Tuesday with How To Graphic Design. During this hour together, we're going to learn how to sharpen your skills in order to create and learn professional techniques here during Adobe Live. If you have participated to any other stream with me, I can see some familiar faces in chat. You know that this is a safe space to learn together. So keep your finger active on the chat. Ask your questions. I'm here 1 hour with you, and I'm here every Tuesday. So as well, if you have any topic suggestion, already have some wonderful projects that are coming up for you. But if you have any specific topic that you wish to, maybe discuss a little more or learn other techniques, so you really want to learn how to do something specific in the Adobe Creative Cloud apps, in particular InDesign, Photoshop, and Illustrator. I've actually created a page which I am going to is on my website is iamkladi.com/how-to. We should be able to jump on it right now. Here it is. So if you just go to iamkladi.com/how-to, it's very easy to navigate here. You will see that there is a little button. Of course, we have all the replays, so we already have test crashed some how-to episodes so far. You can always go back and take part. You can download the assets as well. So there is so much that we have done already in terms of animating social media, design a poster, using Photoshop and Illustrator together. Today, we're going to work in Lightroom and Photoshop, and we're going to work about editing, on how to edit your images. Sorry, my brain is absolutely melting. Here is so hot. I'm actually based in Manchester, UK, although I am Italian, and here is 38 degree. That's something like 99 Fahrenheit. So it's 38 Celsius, I think 99 Fahrenheit. Let me know, where are you from? Where are you watching from? And what's the weather like where you at? Here, I'm so glad that everything is working, because my camera was overheating, everything was overheating, my brain is overheating. But let's go back to what we were saying here. So if you have a suggestion, you can click on the button here, drop your suggestions, and you can let me know. I want to learn how to in whatever app. Feel free to send me a personalized message, or maybe your Instagram page if you want. You have space here for your social link. You do not have to write them, but use this space to express yourself and let me know what you want to learn. I'll be very excited to learn more about your suggestion and your opinions, and just simply submit. Here it is, and I will get an email, and I will just start to put all the different content together as we plan every Tuesday. But as I said, hopefully by now everybody has jumped into Lightroom. I don't have a starter file today because we're generally gonna tackle editing. So editing techniques, we know that our wonderful Lightroom has had some very exciting changes coming up, in particular regarding mask. So we have our Adobe Sensei, which is Adobe Artificial Intelligence, and I say our because that's our friend, our real good friend for editing, masking in both Photoshop and Illustrator. So what this artificial intelligence does is that look at the overall image, and then it can analyze and pick up different part of images. So it will allow you to make your editing much faster. So let's go ahead and start to discover some basics. I'm using my own photos, so there are some images here that we're going to be using that I've collected from some of my holidays. Here is my some of my holidays in Greece, and then I think that was last year. Here it is. We have a couple of photos, and those are straight from my phone. And by the way, I have to mention Lightroom is available on mobile, desktop, and online. You can go ahead and do pretty much, I do all my editing usually on my phone, That's what I do when I fly. Every time that I fly out, I spend my time on Lightroom, or when I'm on a train, or literally anywhere and anytime. You can go ahead and really enhance your photo in order to get the perfect shot. And I want to show you the main techniques so you can really leverage these wonderful apps, and you can transform your mobile photos into professional pictures. Let me know if you have any questions. Laura, lovely to see you in the chat. Steve, Michelle, Richard, Cody Bear helping us out. Thank you for sharing the link, Cody. Make sure to tune in on behance.net/live to participate to the chat. You can also watch on the wonderful Adobe Live YouTube channel. Let us know, where are you watching from? Again, I'm always very excited to know about our international community. I know that we have Fergie here, Wade, Richard, and Laura, Misty, and so many other people joining. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and get started with today's stream. I'm just going to jump into starting with this image here. Whenever I start with an image, usually there are a couple things that I do. I will create a collection. So as you can see here just behind me, let me just jump on the other side of the screen so you can perhaps look a little bit better here. So you can see that I have different albums here, and all I do here is just to create new albums in order to keep my images together. So I have also them grouped. All you have to do is to click on the plus icon right here. Let me zoom in for you to see. And all you have to do is to decide if to create an album or folder. So a folder can contain multiple albums. So for example, I have my holidays folder, and then I create different album per location. And otherwise you can just create album. That's absolutely up to you. Depends what sort of topics you have and what sort of images you have. So maybe you have events, music, personal images, and then that's where you can collect them. So as I said, that will be my first step, and then you can just import the image in the album, or you can go ahead and you can do that on the phone as well. It's located in the same place. All you have to do is under album, create a new album. So as you can see here, I have my editing album. You can use this little icon at the bottom of the page in order to choose the way in which you want to display your images. So you have a photo grid, or then you have a carousel. You can see them side by side. Let me just zoom out so you can see it here. You can see them side by side, and then you have the single image. You can also go into the detail, and that's how you start to edit an image. So let's say that if you are watching on your grid, if you select an image and you press the letter D, it will open up right away in the detail. And that is the place where we can start to edit our photo. So what you start and how you start with images, there are two different ways of editing. You can start to worry about the global look of your image. So if you want to go ahead and enhance the general look of your image as much as you possibly can, and then you can narrow down into the local setting. Let me jump on the other side because I'm going to open the settings that were just right behind me. So what you want to do to start with your global edits is to press the letter E, or go ahead and click on this little icon here with all these different sliders. Let me zoom in so you can see it at the top of the right page. So they will allow you to enhance your image. Here we go. And there is something else, if you press the letter E, that will help you very much, and that's mind-blowing. We have access to super resolution. That is another I think that was already out at max last year. So basically what happens, I'm just going to explain it in the most simple way possible. When our artificial intelligence, Adobe Sensei, looks at our photo, whenever we stretch a photo, we know that photos and images are made by pixels in our screen. So they tend to look, as we say, pixelated. So we lose the definition, and the image just all comes with all these jagged edges. So in order to prevent this from happening, especially if you're looking to print your images or to display it into very large banners, or you really want to have access to detail, maybe you really need to zoom in into a specific area of your image, you can use the super resolution. So what super resolution does is doubles the original resolution of the image, and what it does is enlarges your images, and instead of having these empty pixels that will just make the image looks weird, or it just makes it jagged or pixelated when you stretch it, it will actually replace and implement and create new pixels with the similar content. So we'll fill the content of the pixels in between them in order to double their size. That's super cool. In fact, probably a smaller explanation is it uses machine learning to improve image quality. So if you want to go ahead, as you can see here, it tells you also the time that each image will take, and that's a difference. So actually go ahead and zoom in the image. I'm gonna go ahead and click on it so you can see when I go and zoom in the image that I took with my phone, how much is pixelated. And if I let go, you will see the preview with the enhanced double resolution. Look at how much is different. We do not see that edges of the little pixel square. Everything is much smoother, and it actually fills these this pixel in order to enhance your photo. So that's just already a mind-blowing features that alone allows you to better the quality of your image. And in general, so that's really good if you have if you need your image, or if you need a larger version of your image. Otherwise, if you just, you know, maybe your image is a bit of a poor quality and you want to make sure, or you have like maybe a screenshot of something that has been screenshotted, or something that was already zoomed in, and it looks pixelated. By doing so, using super resolution, look at that, it really makes a difference that without even zooming in. It also tells you how long it takes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on enhance, and we know that it will take 22 seconds for Lightroom to enhance my image and upgrade my resolution. So I already think that that's super mind-blowing. Kieran Lewis in the chat, nice to see. Heat wave in London, absolutely. Kieran, I was just saying, I'm very lucky to be here streaming. I'm actually going to take a quick sip of water. Super hot here in Manchester, 38 degrees. I do not have AC, so I don't know I'm surviving here with the door closed, but fantastic. So there is a question for Laura. Is super resolution also available for video in Lightroom? I have not used it, Laura. That's a fantastic question, which I'm actually going to note down. Not that I'm aware of, is not available for videos, is in particular for images, but I can come back with you maybe another WeChat on Instagram as well. If you guys want to go ahead and linked with me on LinkedIn or Instagram, those are the two main places where you can connect and ask me questions after the stream. So my LinkedIn is I am Kladi, my Instagram is as well, and I am Kladi. Those are the places where you can just simply write me messages. Karen, Laura, we talk all the time. Steve, everybody, you guys are welcome to message me and to dive in more in each single project. And of course, don't forget that we have our form on iamkladi.com/how-to. You can use it for just to share idea of ask questions. Fantastic. So let's go ahead and start to work with these editing techniques. So I'm going to go ahead here and start with our general edits. So these editings are non-destructive editing. That's something very important. So every change that we're going to make, I'm just going to go ahead and make something extreme now. So for example, if we change the exposure, as you can see, I can toggle back and forth. And also if you press the Alt key, or the Option key in your Mac, Alt if you're working on a Windows, you will see that you will be able to reset whatever editing you have done. So nothing that you create here you are committing for life. Everything is non-destructive, so you can go back at any time. So I'm just going to go ahead here and click on the option Reset Light in order to reset. And I'm just going to go ahead and then start with playing with each single slider here. So we can see, I was just looking if there is any question in the chat, any more questions. So it doesn't look there is any other questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and start the general editing. So at the moment, I'm looking at the image overall, then we're going to focus on the wonderful masks, which are the main feature enhancement for our wonderful Lightroom. So let's go ahead and have a little look about these light little sliders here. So light, it controls the overall exposure of the image to the light. So that's very useful. As you can see, if we take the exposure to the right, we can see that our boat, which was underexposed, it will be exposed, but we definitely start to lose all the details from the background because that's definitely overexposed. So this exposure gives you quite dramatic effects. I tend not to use that unless it's extremely necessary or unless that's the look that you're going for, because remember, that is the beauty of photo editing. There is no wrong, no right. It all depends from a general output and what you're looking to achieve with your image. So again, in order to reset your slider, you can either press the Alt and Option key on the little top container here for the light, or simply double click on the slider, boom, it brings it back to its default position. Right. So what I'm going to start using is contrast. I tend to work top to bottom and then go into single areas. Otherwise, we're going to see another photo. We can start by looking at local adjustments, specifically with mask. But in this case, let's start with the general improvement of the image. So again, contrast will make the image pop. By working on the dark and light area, it will make the dark darker and the bright brighter. So let's go ahead and give it a look, and you can see how bright all the sky and the lighter area come, but also we have all the boat and all the other areas that are in the shadow become really, really dark. And of course, if we drag it to the other side, everything becomes really dull. This is quite of an extreme adjustment as well. So I would strongly recommend not to use it maybe right away, or just to use it sparingly, just because again, it does make your image pop, but it also changes a lot the quality of your image. So I just tended to give it just a few points, maybe a 15, 10, something like that, just to start to increase your image. Then here with highlights and shadow, we will be able to control the brightness of the bright areas, in this case for the highlights, and the brightness of the darker areas when we're working with the shadow. So let me go ahead and show you here. When I'm gonna go ahead and turn the highlights down, as you can see, what we do is to take light off the brighter area. And by doing so, we can reveal some of the details. You can see here, especially around these area here where we have a little bit of a, oops, let me go back and zoom in. You can start to reveal all the areas that are lost in the light. So everything where it's too bright, especially between the light blue and the white, it will be much more defined while we make the bright area darker. So we usually tend to move, in general, when we want to correct an image, we tend to move the highlight slider to the left. And that's something that is, again, happens quite often when you create an image. For the shadows, we will have to do the opposite. So we will have to add light in the darker area. So we bring out these details from the shadow, and we know that we have a lot of shadows on the boat. So let's go ahead and see what happens there. So I'm going to go ahead and increase the brightness of the darker area, and you can already see that if I bring it to the maximum, we are start to revealing all these details of our boat. But we lose a lot of details from the green and from the tree, which give a lot of texture to the image. So again, here I'm just going to add a little bit because there is a specific area, so a local area of the image that requires our attention in terms of adjusting its brightness, and especially dealing with these shadows which are overcasting the main subject. And remember, I'm using the term main subject because we're going to jump real quick into the mask to discover how Adobe Sensei will allow us to select the subject in just a few clicks in order to help you to bring it back and enhance the way that it looks. So let's go ahead and in fact do that. Let me just real quick tell you something about whites and blacks. So before we move out of the light little box of settings, so white and blacks are absolute values. So they look at the absolute value of the white in the image of the bright areas, and the same the black will be the absolute value of the dark area. So basically makes your black more black and your white more white. In fact, if we tend to push the white to the right, everything becomes white, it gets all flat. So what I tend to do is to give a little bit of a contrast. I tend to make the white a little bit darker, just so a little bit more contour in your images, and I will do the opposite with the black. So of course, depending on what you need, I kind of like some nice rich blacks as well in your photo, so maybe you can take it to the left. Absolutely up to you. If you want to brighten your image, of course you take the bright to the right. So those are the original, so those are the standard editings in order to improve your images overall. So we're looking at the overall image here. It's darker areas, it's brighter areas, how to make them brighter, how to give more contrast, and so on. But before we get started with more details on the actual image, I'm going to go ahead and talk about this local editing, and in particular masking. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can all see what the masking icon looks like. This is also available on mobile, is absolutely magnific. It works with the same masks. So let's go ahead and click on it to discover more. As you can see here, once you click over, we have a new panel, a working space coming up, it will allow you to create a new mask. But let's have a look here. We can select the subject, and that's why I was referring to the boat as a subject. A subject is not necessarily a person. Adobe Sensei also is able to retrieve a specific subject based on the general image, and then select sky. The sky will be automatically selected inside your image. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on select subject. I'm going to zoom out so you can see the actual effect on the photo here. And as you can see, we have a little working little round icon there telling us that Adobe Sensei is looking at it, is looking at the image, and is trying to establish which is the main subject of the photo, and is already done. It has created a selection for you. So what we see there is the overlay that we have in red, which let us know that that's the selection that Adobe Sensei has created for us. In the past, it would have taken a long time, especially when you're on your phone, that you have to do it with your finger. It takes a long time to create this sort of selection. Also, please do participate with the feedback if you're happy with the result. Is that what you were expecting? Yes or no? It's very important to let the team know. They're working so much on this feature, both on Photoshop and Lightroom, so make sure to give a feedback. I'm really happy. That's exactly what I wanted. I wanted for Adobe Sensei to pick up the boat. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on yes, because that was my expected result. Again, I'm so sorry for drinking here. It's absolutely boiling. I usually manage to go an hour without water, but it's super hot here today. Right, so let's keep going here. What if there are areas though of this image, for example, this little bit, there are part of the selection that I do not want, so I would need to subtract from the selection because they're actually pieces of the background. So all you have to do here is to click at the little minus icon, and let's go ahead and you can collapse and make these just minimal icons, or you can show the details. And I'm actually going to zoom in because I can see that it's very tiny there. So again, you can use this little arrow to just use the icons, and that's how it looks on the phone. Here you can go ahead and expand the details, so you'll be able also to name, so I can know that this is like my boat selection. Perfect. Isn't that amazing? Those are more and more starting to look like Photoshop layers, aren't they? So let's go ahead, and you can also here decide to show the overlay or not. So of course, if you do not show the overlay, the red is going to go away. My laptop is very overheated. Sometimes it just takes a second for it to go away. And then you can also change the color of the overlay. So for example, here the red works absolutely fine. If we tend to use blue in this image, maybe because we have the blue water and there is quite of a blue tone on the street as well, and the sky, we tend to lose it. So it's very useful to be able to change the color of the selection, so you can make something that really stands out and you'll be able to see what is actually selected. Fantastic. So as I was saying here, what we're left to do now is to select and subtract this area that are part of the selection, because we do not want them and we do not want to edit them. We want to make sure, otherwise it will look like we're editing like a patch around. We are conscious of the fact that this is the background, so we want to make sure that we remove that from the boat, so it doesn't we do not apply the same editings to the mask. And again, you can do that even after you have applied any editing to the specific area using the mask. So what I'm going to do here is to use the subtract, here it is, in order to just click on subtract in order to subtract any area, and here you can choose which way you want to subtract it. So you can again do another select subject, select sky, so you can remove the sky, maybe if there was like a sky inside, but in this case it's part of the actual features of the background. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the brush, and with the brush tool here, all I have to do is to click on it, and you will see that you will be able to erase the area. So as you can see, and you can actually work as a Photoshop brush. So if you use the shift key, you can click and then click again in order to create straight line. That's what I tend to do usually. I tend to and by the way, you can use the right and left bracket to change the size of your brush. I'm just going to use it here. So the right bracket makes it bigger and the left bracket makes it smaller, just like so. And if you use the shift key, you will be able, let me see if I can perhaps show you here. It's a little bit clearer there. You will be able to change the feather, having all the image fading around the brush. And again, by using the shift key, you make the fader, which is the outside circle, bigger. And if you use the left bracket, you make it a little bit smaller. And again, just the left bracket to make the brush smaller. So what I will do here, just to start to go ahead and use my shift key to create this straight line, just to give like a perimeter of the area that I know that I want to remove. And again, what I'm doing here, I'm basically painting with a brush inside a mask in order to remove the area of the mask that I do not want to effect. So just go ahead and click and drag, and then what I'll do, I make the brush a little bit bigger, and then very quickly go ahead and then just remove all the areas that are inside the image here. And you can do the same here, just you can keep deleting. I'm just gonna just now do it a bit quickly. Make sure to make use of your time while you do it. Feel free to zoom in and really subtract any area that you do not wish to add to your selection. So again, here it looks like it's having a little bit of a delay. I think it's just my laptop overheating. I probably have to give it a second because at the moment is not working here. Here we go, speaking up again. It's very hot, and I probably need to buy here we go, it's just going and doing everything that I've done now. It's just catching up. Here it is. Also, don't forget when we are working on Lightroom, everything gets saved automatically. So I just think that my laptop, mainly because of the heat, is actually struggling a little bit today. But you get the gist of this. Now, the beautiful thing is that once you see this area getting removed from the mask, you see the thumbnail of the mask also changing. So whenever we're done, if we go back to our mask, you will see that here this area have actually been removed from the thumbnail. This is very, very tiny, but it's really cool to see how these images are actually live. But now let's go ahead and make sure that we hide the overlay. Again, it will just take a second. It will go away eventually. And I'm just going to zoom out because I want to show you the changes that we're going to make to the specific boat. So the way that we were achieving the boat to come back into view was to playing with the shadow, but unfortunately what was happening before is that there was a change in the other side of the image, so also the background was becoming way too bright. But because we have our boat selected here, we have our little selection, we can go ahead and change the way the shadow. So we're going to make the shadow brighter by bringing it to the right, and we're also going to add some highlight here. And as you can see, we're bringing the boat to view. In this case, also exposure will do us a great favor here. And we can go ahead and click on the before and after button, and you will see that we make a dramatic change. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the exposure. I think we overdid it a little bit. It just looks like it's been pasted on top of the background. Make sure to create a little bit more natural effects, again, by using the slider sparingly. But as you can see, this was quite exciting to see how the boat, only the boat, and again, we didn't need to make a selection, we just cleaning up a bit. So whenever you take images and photos with your phone and you have a specific area, and in this case, the reason why the boat was so much in the shadow is because there was a building just in front of it. So I had a building, and then I was standing behind the building, and then there was the boat in the background. So all the sun that was going above the building was able to hit the background, but the building was covering the actual boat. So imagine if there was a person, or maybe you had, your loved ones standing there in the photo, they would have been covered by the shadow as well. And with this simple trick, using a mask which selects the subject and then applying editings, in this case like we've seen, using the highlights and shadows to edit and enhance the brightness and the darkness of the brighter and darker area, you will be able to bring to light literally parts of the image that are hidden and enhancing your photos in just a quick click. But it gets more interesting. What if now you want to work on the opposite area? So the bow looks cool, but now it just doesn't match, doesn't feel right. So if we start to go back and editing everything again, the background doesn't really gonna match the boat, because we have worked so much on the light that it feels like we need to bring everything together. How do we select everything but the boat? So there is a way in which you can do that, which is mind-blowing. I was so happy when this feature got inserted in our wonderful Lightroom. And all we have to do here is to right-click on our mask, and I'm going to zoom in because that deserves full attention. So again, all I've done is right click or control click into the layer, into the mask. I feel like calling layer because again, it is looking more and more like a Photoshop layer. And what we're going to select here is duplicate and invert mask. Once we click on duplicate and invert mask, Adobe Sensei is going to look at the image, look at the mask, create a duplicate and change, and it's exactly like we work in Photoshop. Let's go ahead and have a little look at the mask here. Everything that is in black gets hidden. So basically we're creating another copy of the image where we apply the editing with a little slider to the shadows and to the highlights, and then we have this little mask that works like a cutout, that everything that is in black is hidden and everything that is in white is the actual cutout, so you can see the editing coming through. So that's why we have the boat in white and everything else in black. So once I'm going to go ahead and duplicate and invert the mask, we can see that we have a boat inverted. So here everything but the boat is showcased. That you can see here, if we go back into our full view mode, that everything but the boat is now pink, because again, that was the color that we selected for our overlay. Again, we can change the color at any time. Probably is even more visible now. It's so cool that you can change the overlay. Green is also a great color, just because in nature these green is not usually there. That's why it's wonderful when you use green screen, because it's a very unique color that it's again usually not there. So you can use that to understand where your mask is there, is covering, which areas is your mask is covering. So now that means that all of that is now green or white inside the mask will be revealed. So now whatever editing we're going to make, they're going to be applied to the background. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the overlay. Give it a second, it's gonna go away. I've tested it before. I was a little bit upset because it was still there, but I just learned that you need to be a little bit patient. My computer is very overheated and sometimes it just takes a second for Lightroom just to go back and hide the overlay. Anyway, here we go, it's gone. So all we're left to do now is with our boat, with our selection and mask selected, we can now start to play with the color. Maybe now we bring the exposure a little bit up. We can just bump the contrast a little bit more. Maybe we can just go ahead in the temperature and make it a little bit more towards the blues. Again, all we're trying to do here is to trying to match the foreground, which is in this case our boat, and the background. So I feel we really want to bump up the whites as well, and maybe give a little bit of depth to the actual background. So now it looks like there is some shadow on the boat, because we can still see here this area that contains the shadow, but at the same time we can see all the details of the boat. And something really cool here I want to show you. If we go back into our boat, let's collapse this little boat inverted, which we can actually rename background. I love renaming layers. That's so important, because when you start to create many masks, you can overlay as many masks as you want. It's very important to understand what are you working on. So I'm going to call this one background. Perfect. So we can toggle between the two. What I wanted to show you here for the boat, there are further editings that you can do. So I'm gonna go ahead and just create a new mask, and I'm gonna use the brush in this case. So with the brush, I'm just can go ahead and select all this little red area if you want, just here, because I do not want to tackle all the rest of the area of the boat. Again, you can show your overlay to make sure that they actually appear inside your image here. And then I'm gonna use the tint and the hue just to make those pop a little. So you can just go ahead and select a specific area and change their color as well, which I think is super cool. Here it is there. So we just made them pop, and I'm just gonna go in between back and forth, and I'm gonna jump into another image just real quick, because I can see that the time is ticking, but I want to show you the before and after. Hopefully we're going to be able, so that was our starting point. We've been working on it about 10 minutes. So we'll be able to make different selection, and look how dramatic is the effect. Literally with a few masks, we really created dramatic changes in our image. Now, before we move forward, let's go back into our general editing. And now that we have matched the foreground with the background, we brought the boat back to light, we can now start to refine our image. Again, I'm gonna leave my computer catching up a second. I apologize, it's just really overeating and doing a couple of things on his own, but I think that we're now ready to keep going here. So what I'm going to do here is to jump into the effects to play with texture and clarity. So what texture does is it just brings the details and the density of the image, as the words say, just gives it more texture. It doesn't add grain, but it just adds more details to the image. So this image looks like is already quite heavily in terms of the details because we've been using so much brightening, so it just looks quite sharp. So in this case, I will perhaps tend to remove a little bit of texture just to give a little bit more of a nicer and soft look to the image. Again, because especially when you add so much contrast, you sharpen the light and you make the light brighter, make the darker area darker. It just creates a little bit of almost fake component between the image. It just sort of become a little bit jagged, and it just start to bring too much details out because they're details made by us working on the pixels. So in this case, I will actually use the texture to in its opposite value, in this case to remove texture and to make the image a little bit more smooth. It just helps also to bring, especially when you have different masks with different adjustments applied to them, it just brings them together and just kind of brings the levels together, makes the image elements work better. For the clarity, you will have a contrast in the midtone. I do not know if we do need any further contrast in the image. I think it will start to look like having all these artifacts. I kind of like the shadow coming back in, because I think it's lovely that we do have the natural shadow on the boat, but it doesn't overcast and hide the boat. So I'll actually find it quite interesting, and it sort of brings in all the shadows in the trees as well. Then if you need to, you can use the Dehaze to remove any haze from the image. It's a very hot summer day, so you definitely can see some haze in the sky. That's absolutely up to you. There is not much haze in general in this photo, so again, this is absolutely up to your taste for the way they are editing the image. I also tend to add a little bit of a black vignette, so you can add a white if you turn to the right. I like to add a black one by moving the slider to the left. Again, try not to be too dramatic, because that can be quite dramatic. Look, it just makes all the edges of the photo dark. Use it sparingly just to bring and help your eye to guide the attention towards the center, especially if you have a model or a picture of a person. It's nice to give a little bit of a contour and really help the eye to focus on the actual subject inside the image. And then if you want, I always add a little bit of grain, and that's kind of brings back a more realistic texture to the photo. Once you have manipulated your image so much, everything tends to go flat, everything tends to look a bit spongy. So giving a little bit of a grain, I think it brings a little bit of reality, of dust inside the image, making it look less digital and more real. Perfect. So those are the main editing that I will do for this image. I think that we really went far in less than an hour. So that was the beginning, and that was the end of the photo, which I think is really, really cool. It's going to come back in a second, hopefully. Let's see if I have to click one more time. Again, I apologize today. We are in super heat. Hopefully, we're going to have a little bit of a... I'm just going to leave it a second, because otherwise I don't want to make it work even harder. But we're going to see in a second. It's just going to start to switch before and after, which, as you can see, is the little icon at the bottom that we used before. So I think we've done a fantastic job for working in less than an hour with this particular photo. Let me know in the chat. There are two things. I can either jump into another image and show you more in a Lightroom, or we can jump real quick into Photoshop and even take this image even further. So let me know what you want to do. I can perhaps start to move into the other images. Let's see if there is something that I can show you real quick in these last about 10 minutes that we have together. I'm just going to go ahead and do something with this image in the meantime. But let me know if you want to jump into Photoshop, because I can also show you a little bit more here. Again, here, differently from what we've done before, instead of working with the global edits of the image and start to enhance the image in general, I'm gonna go ahead and start by using mask right away. In particular, I'm gonna go ahead and click on the mask. What I want to start changing is the sky, but the real reason why I want the sky is because I actually want everything but the sky. So that means that we're gonna go ahead and I use our Adobe Sensei to have a quick mask, a quick selection of the sky, and it's done a pretty good job. I'm probably going to go ahead and add, using the brush like we did before, I'm just going to go ahead and add this bit of the sky that was left behind. But overall, yes, it was doing what I've expected. And then like we did before, we can go ahead and double click on this image and rename it. I'm going to call it sky, and then right click and control and select duplicate and invert mask. So in this case, we're gonna have everything but the sky. Isn't that amazing? So here we're gonna have foreground on. Perfect. So we can go ahead and hide the overlays, select the foreground, and right away here we can use our editing tools. Oops, let's go back into our mask. In order to bring back everything that is hidden in the shadows. So as you can see, we can make everything brighter or darker, depending on, again, on what you want to achieve, but also use the highlights to reveal everything that is hidden under the light area. But in particular, what I'm interested in this image is to dehaze. We definitely have a little bit of haze, and look how it looks like that the lights are actually turning on. I absolutely love this adjustment, and definitely with the clarity and texture that also help so much. With the sky, I'm probably just going to give a little bit of the usual shadow and highlights by bringing the details from the shadow and from the highlight scene. So highlights to the left, shadow to the right. As I say, those are the standard to start with, and then you can move the basics and around. But already in just a few clicks, we brought the image miles from where it started. Again, hopefully we're going to be able to do a little bit of back and forward, and we didn't touch the exposure, we didn't touch the contrast, and we already started to see the city coming through. But there is another mask that I want to show you, which is our linear gradient. Linear gradients are pretty cool. All you have to do is to click on create new mask and then linear gradient, and then click inside the image and click and drag in order to create your linear gradient. As you can see, the linear gradient will have a starting point, which is the line, and then the gradient will go above and below, and you can actually move here the gradient. Here we go. So you can start to see that the image is going from a full color to a gradient. So whatever color or whatever adjustment you apply with the gradient, you will be able to distribute it evenly with the gradient. So for example, here, what I want to do is to use the gradient just below the city. So I want to make sure that we're just basically affecting the water with our gradient here. Oops. I really need to be patient today with my computer because it's going a little bit crazy. I think that we rotated. You can actually rotate it if you want. Let's give it a second. Let's give it a second to breathe. Hopefully is there. I'm so happy that he made it for the full hour. In the meantime, there is a question from Anthony. I was wondering if the reader Lightroom or Classic requires more RAM in comparison, and if one runs more efficiently on the desktop. No, they both work efficiently. The main difference, I mean, Lightroom is Lightroom. It works on the Camera Raw engine, so that's the same. And when you use the Camera Raw filter in Photoshop, it's exactly the same computing. So in terms of processing information, you are dealing with the same machine. The main difference is that Lightroom Classic is tailored for an audience of mainly photographers, of people that really take high volume images, and it will allow you to have a more efficient way of classifying, storing, archiving your images. So that's one of the main difference between the two. Otherwise the functionality are pretty much the same. So I would strongly recommend to use one or the other, depending again of the quantity and the way that you want to deal with your images. Lightroom Classic is fantastic in the way that gives you access to many batches of images. So again, depending on the editing job that you have, Anthony. Fantastic. So unfortunately, it looks like we have 5 minutes to go, and let's see what's going on with the mask. It looks like, oh, perfect. It's giving me the chance to actually do what I want. Thank you, laptop. perfect here. I'm with a MacBook Pro, by the way. So it's also, I'm not working with a massive machine. I have over 30,000 images at the moment that I'm working on, working with, and it's also very hot. So I think that the major issue for me right here, Anthony, is that it's just the heat, although I'm working on a laptop. Perfect. So what we can do here is to start to work on our shadow even more. And you will see that once we start to bring the brightness of the shadow, what I wanted to do is to affect, you know, the bottom of the image, but not the center, because I thought that it's so nice to have that contrast in the center of the image where we see our light literally turning on. And again, this is a mask that is overlapping already two masks. I want to do something a little bit more extreme so you can actually see. So, okay, so I'm doing something very extreme here. I'm just turning the exposure to the top so you can see that is only affecting the bottom of the image here. And again, if you want to do the same, so if you want to perhaps create a lot of drama into the actual photo and almost erasing the water effect just given by a dramatic look, you can use this mask with the gradient to be able to add a little bit of darkness or underexposing, which is basically the opposite of what we were doing with the boat, just at the bottom of the image. Oh yeah, by the way, let me know in the chat. I can see Craig saying I am a Mac. How many PC user and how many Mac user we have? I use both. I use the PC for video editing, and I use the Mac for graphic design, general graphic design. So let me know how many Mac user or PC user we have in the chat. But as you can see here, you can really work in details. And before we get going and we say goodbye, I wanted to show you also something really cool that you can do with your colors. So colors are fantastic. You can choose a specific color from your color mixer. Probably should have done the same with the boat. In fact, before we move further down, when I created a mask with the color, I was thinking, why am I doing that? You can actually do the editing just with the color. So if we go here in the edit and then we select the color slider in the color mixer, you can target a specific color and a specific and you can change the tone of the hue, so we can make our red look more magenta or look more yellow, and then also its saturation. So by doing so, let me go ahead and zoom in these little red bits here. So everything that is red in the image is automatically more saturated or less saturated, as you can see in just one click. So that's a most efficient way of targeting color. I was just going a little bit crazy with the masks. Even here we have this yellow, which of course it will affect the plants as well, because I know that we have a lot of yellow in the plants as well. You can change the hue, so you can make maybe the yellow a little bit more green, but also its saturation. You can make the yellow very yellow or just start to take the color away. And if you want to get creative, I know that we have 5 minutes, but that's probably a very cool way. The boat is mainly white, red, and blue, and that gives us access to something really, really amazing. So look here, if we select everything, all the other colors, so our oranges, and I'm just going to take the saturation, our green, so everything but our blue and our red, we can basically make everything else disappear. And then we can create a mask for the sky and down here and just have our boat in color. So again, if we go back into our mask and then select everything but the boat, so it's the background, and add to our saturation. Look how cool is this. Everything but the boat is in color. And maybe you can select now the boat, and you can go back and just gives a little bit of a push with the saturation. Let's go ahead and find our saturation here. Here it is. And we can just bump it even more. So we have a black and white photo, and we really make the little boat the queen of the image. I do that a lot of time, especially when I have a picture of a subject, either like a model or even with dogs as well. I love to keep the puppy or the cat in full colors and then remove the saturation of a specific color or specific colors, and then just have the main subject in color. And again, those are not destructive. So if you're not happy, you can just simply undo anything that you're done in here, and we're still in Lightroom. You see how many versions of this image we have created. Isn't that absolutely amazing? I found that so exciting. So if you weren't happy with these editings, you can simply go back into we were before, and here it is. That's our edited image of the boat. Now let's go back to our night here that we were doing. And the very last thing before, unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye, because I know that I have 2 minutes left, is to use the color grading. In particular, the color grading that I use is what is called cinematic, that tends to have a cyan and orangey tints. That's very, very common in movies. So what you have to do is to move your shadows towards a blue or cyan color and your highlights towards the orange. First of all, I love it on this photo. I think it makes it look so romantic, and I'm going to zoom in into the city. But also, because we have lights in a dark background, it really enhances the brightness of the features of the city. And by the way, this is Prague. I was there to meet a friend, which is David. So I just want to say a big hello to David if he's watching. And you can see how gorgeous it is, and how much it brings all the pinks and the orange from the sky, give it a much more romantic look at this sunset, but also brings all the lights that are there to identify these wonderful features of the town and the skyline. You can see how gorgeous it is using these color grading to really make a specific look of your photo. And of course, I kind of like the way that the photo is looking now. You can go ahead and crop your image. So I think that we do not need all these areas over here. You can have a custom aspect ratio. So here you can feel free to move the image as much as you want. It doesn't have to move proportionally. I kind of like the side of the green that is a frame in the image. Maybe it's nice to have it on the corner as well, just giving almost a vignette on its own. And also it's nice to have the city just in the middle there. So we have our horizon line that is matching the center of the image, just like that. Perfect. Once you're happy, all you have to do is to click on enter. And remember, here we have different versions of your image. So if you're now happy with this version, you can just simply click on create version, and here we'll have romantic look, just because we have our color grading and the editings that we're done for so far. Perfect. Unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. Time flies so much, but don't forget to be back here at Adobe Live. There is a Voodoo Val with Glow Up, and we're gonna be back together with How To next week on Tuesday, same time at Adobe Live. Go and grab a cup of coffee and come back for more fun at Adobe Live. Goodbye, everybody.